Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Golden Opportunities Coaching YouTube channel, and today we're going to talk about 7 signs of evil people. I had a client yesterday who was dealing with the fact that they most likely were involved with somebody who, at the very least, had committed violent crimes, at the very most, potentially could have killed or severely injured somebody. And you can imagine the traumatic nature of dealing with that and going, how the heck did I wind up with such a person? And the sad part is that, especially with the rise of narcissism and pathology and narcissistic tendency, pathological lying, and other things within society, which perhaps I'll make another audio on at some point, because I do believe there is a reason for that rise. But to say the very least, with the rise of those behavioral patterns in modern society, there is a reason and a need for us to address, like, how can we know if there's a sign that somebody could have evil tendencies or evil leanings, could be evil, could have evil motives, that sort of thing? How can we protect ourselves from dealing with people that are the more depraved members of society? I think it's something we all have to worry about, because it could happen to any of us. I'm reminded of a client I had a few years ago who married somebody who was on the outside an upstanding individual, and later found out that she was the 4th wife of a person who was only 30. And that he had used his position of power to convince at least 4, if not more, women that he was a good guy. And this can happen with women too, so don't think it's male bashing or anything like that. Women can be just as evil as men, although historically speaking, evil-driven pathologies are more male because the masculine nature of men is focused on in modern society. But obviously, with women becoming more integrated into, especially Western culture, and seen as equals, not so much in the rest of the world quite yet, but we do see evil women as well. And so how do we deal with that? So there's 7 things I've highlighted here. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 7 things I've highlighted here that are just things I want to go over really quick. The first, and it's really simple, is if you're dealing with a person that never takes blame for anything they do, then their immediate answer to any time they're confronted with something is, it's this person's fault, or if this didn't happen, then I wouldn't have done this, or there's always a rationalization. And the rationalization, even though it might make sense, even though it very well could be logical and plausible, it's like, wait a second, there is no willingness in this person to even take a percentage of blame. Now, a person who's emotionally integrated will be able to say, well, part of this was my fault, right? They'll be able to say, well, I wish this hadn't happened, and this was this other person's fault, but if I had done this differently, I might not have ended up there. So there's at least partial plausible responsibility for actions taken. An evil individual is going to take zero responsibility almost 100% of the time, because they're trying to maintain an image that they are above reproach, or above in intelligence, above in influence, above you in some way. That feeling of superiority, which also ties in with narcissism, is something that they want to cultivate so that you don't question some of the flaws in their behavior, right? If they can convince you that they never do anything wrong, then when you see something wrong, your mind is going to causally go to, no, I can't, this can't be right. I must be wrong about how I'm seeing this. And that can be really dangerous, but it's one thing that an evil person preys upon, is your desire to go with what you've already seen. And if they've convinced you that they don't do wrong things, your mind is going to instantaneously go to, they didn't do this, something else happened to them. All right, so the second thing is they show no remorse or no regret for anything they've done that's sincere. Now, there is the pathology of showing false regret or false remorse. And usually these are exaggerated apologies. They're gaslit apologies, where it's like, I'm so sorry, this will never happen again, I never meant to hurt you. But there's no actual, like, self-reflection of saying, this is what I did wrong. This is why it is wrong. Here is what I will do in the future. An apology doesn't mean jack rabbit if there isn't an acknowledgement of how to change behavior along with it, right? Any person can say, I'm sorry. And I mean, if we look at children, right? You catch a child stealing a cookie from a cookie jar, and you say to the child, hey, did you take that cookie? And they say, uh-uh. And then you say, hey, I see crumbs. Did you take that cookie? And they say, uh-uh. And then you say, just be honest with me, and you look them in the eye, and you get on their level, and you're crouching in front of them, and they can't run. And then they say, uh-huh. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, they've admitted that they've taken the cookie. Now, most children, especially before the age of about 7 or 8, have no regret of this. They got what they wanted, right? And which was the cookie. And there's no reason for them to regret the behavior. There's no actual reason for them to have any remorse. So when you say to a child, well, are you going to do it again? Now, the child, if they're reasonably intelligent, and most kids are, I think kids are more intelligent now than they were when I was a kid, they're probably going to say, if you said to them, hey, are you going to do that again? They're going to say, no, because if they say yes, they know they're going to get in more trouble, right? Now, here's the litmus test. If you say to a child, why was that wrong? A child that has an understanding of reason for regret or reason for remorse is going to come up with a reason that makes sense, that's age appropriate, within about 30 seconds to a minute. They might say, because it hurt you, because I made you sad, or something else, right? Now, the child with no remorse or no regret is going to go, I don't know, and all of a sudden you're like, well, wait, are you really sorry, or are you just saying you're sorry? Guess what? Evil adults do the same thing, because somewhere in childhood, between about 7 to 12 years old, depending on the emotional cognitive development of the child, there is a connection between hurting others and having empathic willingness to be like, you know what, I don't want to hurt people on purpose. An evil person doesn't have that same core. They go, if I have to hurt you to get what I want, then ultimately I'm good with that. And I'll just share on the channel really quickly, and I'll go into this in another audio at some point, but I was raised by someone who would be the personification of evil based on my understanding of it. And he had a saying that I don't have to touch you to hurt you. And so there was no regret, no remorse in the actions he would take to manipulate, right? And being raised around that, you see through it. But also, once you've been around an evil person and you really accept, and here's the hard part, it's extremely hard for most people to accept that they've been around an evil person. Because ultimately, there's a couple things. There is a small chance, what do we call it, 1%, 5%, 10%, with every interaction we have with the human race, that we could be around an evil person, right? Like, it's possible. So when we've actually been affected by the personification of evil, we begin to go, am I stupid? Am I vulnerable? Am I naive? Or am I just a random victim? And sometimes it's a combination of those things. Sometimes we are a little naive, but we're a random victim. Sometimes we are a little foolish, but we're a random victim. Sometimes we set ourselves up because we don't pay attention to the red flags, and therefore we heighten the chances of our own victimhood. But just because you've been the victim of an evil person doesn't mean you're unintelligent and doesn't mean you can't grow or learn. Now, the key thing that an evil person wants, and number 3 on our list, is control. They want to be able to manipulate situations for their benefit. Now, how do they do this? They'll do it with harsh words. They'll do it with insults. They'll do it with pity. They'll do it with fear. They'll do it with bartering. They'll do it with withholding things like money or attention or, in some cases, sex, or they'll withhold information that you may need. The bottom line is they want a power grab. They want to feel like they're over the top of you. So one thing you may want to do is, if you're starting to question within yourself, am I really dealing with an evil person here? The question you can ask yourself is, are they willing to surrender control in any situation? And when the answer comes back mostly no or not at all, you might want to reevaluate that relationship. That's a really simple litmus test to identify if you're dealing with someone that has an evil core, right? Because if they're not willing to surrender control, and sometimes surrender control is like something as simple as, you can choose where we go to dinner, or you can choose when we leave the house to go to that party, or you can choose your own clothing. I had a woman one time who literally got beat because she didn't have her partner, and her partner was female, oddly enough. So again, evil is not gender biased. When she did not allow her partner to choose her clothing, she would get physically assaulted. And again, it's just a control mechanism to say, wait a second, the evil person always wants control. Now, the next thing on our list is a propensity to lie. Now, we all lie upon occasion, right? We all tell white lies, and I would even go as far as to say we tell white lies every day. How you doing? I'm fine. No, you're not. Chances are there's something that's bothering you somewhere inside, even if it's, I didn't get enough sleep today, or I really don't like how I look in these jeans, or I really wish my kid hadn't woken me up by bouncing on my bladder. There's something that's bothering you today. So you're not 100% fine all the time. And we usually tell white lies just to be able to socially get along, right? But when a lie becomes deliberate, when a lie becomes with a motive, the chances are that a person behind a lie with a motive has evil intentions. So a lie with a motive is to control the narrative of how a person is seen. It is less likely that a person who is they may have tendencies towards being hard or cold or whatever, but a non-evil person is going to be able to say, you know what, I did lie to you because here's why, and they'll have a reason that they lied. Now, most people don't like to be caught in a lie, so they're not going to admit it at first, but sooner or later, maybe a day later, maybe a week later, maybe a month later, they'll say, yeah, I did lie, but here's what I was thinking that caused me to lie. An evil person never admits to their lie until they're caught and they have no other choice. An evil person is like a rat in a maze. They will continue to look for ways out of the maze until there is absolutely no way out but to chew their foot off. And these individuals often will lie just for the sport of it. It's like hunting or it's like bowling. They see what they can get away with because there's a sporting aspect to how dumb are you that you believe me. Most pathological liars also, in some ways, have a great emotional quotient aptitude for being able to read people, for being able to sense how people are going to react to things, and they'll try things out with what I call planned lying just to see if they have gained more credibility within their narrative story. And so it's very dangerous to look at a person when you've caught them in a lie and confront them as much as it is to add up all the lies they've told you over a period of time. Because if you confront a pathological liar, two things are going to happen. One, they're going to go, of course I didn't lie. Well, you always look at things this way, and you always, and they're going to give you all the reasons why they didn't lie. And then instantaneously, your mind is going to go to trying to rationalize how you could be wrong about them being a liar, which means they've taken the heat off themselves. Secondarily, a pathological liar may become violent. They may become verbally abusive, physically abusive, domineering, dominating, or leading to isolate you so that you can't expose their pathology, their behavior of lying consistently. So confronting a liar, which most people have the natural inclination to do, and I mean, there's a difference between did you steal $20 from my purse if we're talking about a teenager versus, are you still married? Is there a body buried in a basement? Obviously, the level of severity of the potential crime or moral infraction should have an impact upon whether or not you confront a liar. But if you really fear for your safety, or if you're starting to wonder if you're dealing with somebody evil, confronting a liar is the worst thing you can do because you put yourself in potential dangerous situations. So, another thing to consider when dealing with a liar is ultimately they seek revenge. And the revenge sometimes can take weeks, months, or even years to unfold. A pathological liar who has evil intentions will never let an issue go. So they may have a propensity for something like, and I hear this all the time in the dating groups that I run and the relationship coaching clients that I have, something where they'll say, he always buried his ex, or she was always angry at her baby daddy, or she was always upset with her mother, and she never showed any awareness of what she might have done wrong in that relationship. He never said, I could have been better here. And so that revenge mentality is, you have hurt me, therefore I must hurt you worse than you hurt me, and it doesn't matter how long I have to wait to get you in a position where I can take advantage of you, where I can lay you out, where I can get the final laugh, where I can get all the power, right? That's what a revenge-minded person is going to do. And a lot of times, they're going to do it in such a way where the biggest arsenal weapon they have is the fear of what action they're going to take. And I say this as an abuse survivor. I remember when my biological father was physically and verbally abusive to me, which was a daily occurrence for me. But worse than the physical pain, worse than the strikes, worse than the burns and the cuts and all that stuff. And I'm sorry if it's a trigger warning for anybody. But worse than all of that was the anticipation of what would come next. The anticipation of how bad it was going to be the next time, or the next time, or a week from now, or, was it going to cross a line where I'd pass out? Was it going to cross a line where whatever? What was the next escalation going to look like? And that revenge mentality of, hey, am I getting hit for what I did today, or am I getting hit for what I did 2 weeks ago, was always playing in the back of my head. How much was he willing to forgive? How much was he willing to forget? And also, what is it that I could do to allay those situations? Now, the next factor is huge for people who have evil intentions or evil core, and that is they live a double life, right? So I know this firsthand. My biological father was a public figure. He was extremely influential in the area where he lived. He was a public servant. He was a lot of things. He was also extremely evil behind closed doors. But if you had told the majority of people in the town I grew up in, or heck, even the state I grew up in, about his evil, they'd go, you're insane. Matter of fact, when I went public with my story of abuse as a teenager, I was told, who are we going to believe, you, some punk kid, or someone we've known for 20, 30 years? And so the evil person will live a double life because they're serving multiple masters. They only will engage with you at the level where it's useful to them. So if they want you to see that in one case they're willing to help old ladies cross the street, then that's what they'll show you. If they want you to see that they're very charismatic, then that's what they'll show you. If they want you to see that they're ruthless and cold, then that's what they'll show you. But the main motivator for someone who's living a double life is not, gee, I want to form relationships, gee, I want to feel connected to another human being. That key motive instead is, I want to control what you remember about me and how you view me as a person. And if I can control that, I'm living multiple lives because I'm serving multiple masters, and nobody knows. Billy Joel has a song called The Stranger. If you've never heard The Stranger, go out of your way to listen to it, because this is what I'm talking about. No one knows that person that's pathologically evil completely. There is no one on the planet that will know them fully, know them completely, because the portions or slivers that they show of themselves are different based on who their target audience is. The final thing is that you will have multiple warnings about a person. Now, this gets dangerous. And the reason it gets dangerous is because people can change. I do believe that there are spiritual revelations for folks. There's personal growth. There's repentance. There's, there's options for people to change their heart and to grow and to want to be a better person and all that stuff. So it's dangerous when we say, a person from 10 years ago says this person is a bad person. That's entirely possible. They might have been a bad person then. Maybe they were drinking, maybe they were doing drugs, maybe they were dealing with mental illness, maybe they were dealing with other things. But if you have a bunch of people around you that know that person now, like say within the last year, and they're saying, stay away from him, stay away from her, and you're hearing that from more than 2 or 3 people, run far, fast away. Because here's the thing. An evil person will go through a large quantity of people in a short span of time, and they will leave the same hallmark and trail calling cards on that person. I thought they were a good person, and then they turned on me. I thought they were a good person, and then they abandoned me. I thought they were a good person, and then they showed a side of themselves that I didn't like. You'll hear this time and again and again and again and again. So have a frame of reference when dealing with any person. Also realize that evil people tend to socially isolate, except when it's useful to be social. So you might want to say, well, how, and it's hard. Like, for example, and this is probably the hardest thing on the list to detect. The rest are pretty easy if your senses are up. But this one's really difficult because let's say a person's coming out of jail, right? And they've been in jail for, I don't know, a year, 3 years, something like that. The people that know them before only know that person that engaged in behavior that led them to be incarcerated. So they're going to think, this person's pretty evil, they're crazy, they're nuts. They don't know or have a frame of reference around that person's evolution of potential change, positively or negatively, while incarcerated. So it's really not a good idea to judge a person who's been away from society for an extended period of time based on what other people say about their past. But if you talk to, let's say, a chaplain at the prison, or you talk to a correctional officer, or you talk to another inmate, or you talk to that person, again, it comes back to, do they show regret and remorse? Is it believable? Do they take responsibility for their previous mistakes? Do they take blame for the things they've done wrong? These are going all the way back. If they're not doing that in a believable way, and you're receiving warnings from outside sources that this is not a good person, then you pay attention. But if they're showing growth and evolution, it might be worth it to give them a shot. I'll say this. One of my best friends is a guy that on the outside people would say, why would you be friends with this guy? He has a criminal record from ending in 2013-14. He did a lot of bad stuff for about 8 years, and he did not. His give a damn was busted, and so he made a lot of mistakes, made a lot of enemies, did a lot of bad stuff. Then he met a girl who helped him turn his life around, and he's been out of prison now going on 7 years. Hasn't had any brushes with the law in 7 years, taken care of his family, got multiple kids, runs his own business, does good things. If I judged him based on how he had behaved before, I wouldn't have that friendship. If I judged him based on who he is now, then I'm glad I have the friendship. But again, he when I first met him several years ago, I met him in between prison bids, probably close to a decade ago. And at the time, he was still able to say, I need to work on this, I need to work on that, I need to do this differently, I need to find someone to hold me accountable. And there were things even then, and he did go back to jail after that because he hadn't learned everything he needed to learn yet. But he would say things like, I need to work on, I need to grow in, I need to not, I need to try, I need to, you know what I mean? And there was that self-responsibility piece. An evil person does not have self-responsibility because they believe the world owes them something. And so that closes us out for today on the 7 signs of dealing with an evil person. I wonder, comment below, do you think you've ever dealt with an evil person? How did you recover? What was your key sign? Comment below. We'd love to interact with you. Again, like, subscribe, hit the bell. We're here every day. Scott Golden with you, reminding you, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. If you'd like to get in contact with me for private coaching sessions, you can do so in one of 2 ways, at PO Perception on Twitter, or you can send a message directly here through YouTube, and I'll get back to you always within 24 hours. Keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Until next time, everybody.